Victorian people were great moralizers. They were forced to live according to a strict behavioral code based on hard-working, public and respectable private life, well-defined family roles, being out of any kind of gossip. Victorian society was based on hypocrisy. Everyone had a respectable public life, but they secretly cultivated their inner instincts, drinking, visiting brothels, being violent, always obsessed with the idea of respectability. Stevenson stressed that if these instincts are kept inside, they may poison human life, and thus he wrote a novel, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, based on a single truth. Every man is not truly one, but truly two. One good, respectable, and socially accepted part is forced to live with a dark, closed side which violates the traditional behavioral codes. Dr. Henry Jekyll is a respectable scientist. Like all Victorians, he is obsessed with his public image, but he is aware that there's a dark side inside his personality, and it's very difficult to control it. He knows the coexistence of the socially acceptable side with this dark side is very difficult. Inspired by the scientific discoveries about electricity and magnetism, he performs some experiments to separate his positive pole from his negative one. He makes a potion. When he drinks it, he becomes another creature, Edward Hyde. Hyde is short, hairy, animal-like. He represents pure instincts, what Freud called the unconscious. Hyde leaves his house unseen by his servants using the back door. Hyde indulges in all vices which Jekyll feels ashamed of. Edward Hyde grows taller and stronger. Jekyll doesn't manage to control it anymore. Transformations start to become spontaneous. The potion doesn't work anymore. To stop Hyde, Jekyll ends up committing suicide. This is the demonstration that the experiment always fails. You can't split the two poles of a personality of a man, just like you can't split the two poles of a magnet. The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is a brief work, often referred to as a novella, that offers an interesting plot, vivid characters, elegant writing, and a provocative treatment of themes that continue to be relevant today. We encounter the mystery of Jekyll and Hyde through the eyes of the lawyer Mr. Utterson, who tries to understand how his friend Dr. Jekyll is connected to the repulsive Mr. Hyde. The mystery still remains when Utterson breaks down the door to Jekyll's laboratory and finds Hyde dead on the floor. Utterson finally solves the mystery when he discovers the facts of Jekyll's horrible experiment upon himself in the letters left to him by Dr. Lanyon and by Jekyll himself. The last chapter, chapter 10, is a full testament written by Jekyll concerning his history and his character. Jekyll describes himself as a proud man who wanted a reputation as a serious person. Early on, he hid his natural high spirits and developed a double character. His scientific studies focused on these aspects of man, especially in the moral dimension. He wanted to learn how these two sides could be disconnected. At the same time, he was studying drugs and discovered a potion that could transform his flesh and turn him into a creature that represented his hidden nature. When he tries the drug on himself, he feels himself to be extremely wicked, but at the same time, he was exhilarated by this sensation. He begins to live this dual life. one as the respectable gentleman and the other as a person who gives into every impulse. Jekyll continues to metamorphose back and forth between his two halves until one day the reversal occurs spontaneously. He realizes that the evil side of his nature is growing and he is in danger of taking control of his life. He tries to resist the temptation, but once again he gives in. This time he kills Sir Carew. He is penitent and tries to maintain a good and sober life until he forgets his terror. Now his evil side begins to take over even without the drug. He must use stronger and stronger doses of the potion to return to his original self. When he runs out of the salt he uses in the compound, he finds that the fresh supply he orders does not have the power to transform him. As he writes this testament, he knows he has limited time before his evil nature takes over. He wonders if Hyde will die on the scaffold or commit suicide. This is the end of the unhappy life of Henry Jekyll. The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was a precursor to the detective novel, which formally began with the first Sherlock Holmes novel published in 1887. 19th century romantic artists emphasized feeling, emotion, and intuition in their choice of subjects and artistic style. They were interested in all aspects of fantasy, imagination, dreams, nightmares, the infernal and the macabre. They explored what happens when the human mind goes into the darker side of consciousness and when reason is asleep. For example, the romantic artist Théodore Géricault was interested in the irrational states of the human mind and the idea that the mind affected the physical appearance of a person. He created many studies of the mentally ill and criminally insane. In order to explore how persons can engage in both positive and negative behaviors, you can freely write about a time when you showed kindness to an animal or another person, and then about a time when you were cruel or unkind. What causes a person to act in such radically opposite ways, and what does this suggest about human personality or human nature? Dr. Jekyll decides to test his theory of the two sides of human nature by performing an experiment on himself with potent drugs. He knows death is possible, but decides the potential knowledge is worth the risk. Today, scientists explore the possibilities of cloning and creating life. Bring in an article from a newspaper or the internet that discusses advances in cloning or genetic manipulation. You can interview science teachers or science professionals in the community about the ethics of experimentation. What guidelines do they follow when conducting research? How do they decide if the potential benefits override the risks of the experiment? Do they consider experimentation on animals acceptable? In Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Stevenson shows the civilizing influence as well as the restricting and debilitating effects of society. The negative effects of society can be seen in the repressed and restricted behaviors and the duplicity shown by Dr. Jekyll, a member of elite society who is a reputed social benefactor. Whenever Dr. Jekyll wants to change into his darker side, he seeks isolation. He wants to maintain his respectable role in the community while he engages in activities not acceptable to society. Novels and films explore what happens when people are freed from the restraints of society and the role of the community to maintain moral behavior. Read Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness or Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. What happens to people when they are not restrained by social conventions? In Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the main character describes the intense isolation and alienation from family and friends that preceded his creation of the creature. Discuss what are the ways that Victorian society has shaped their behavior. Why does Stevenson emphasize their behaviors, their routine, and their philosophy of minding their own business? Sigmund Freud explored the role of civilization in helping individuals to control their destructive urges and impulses. Read a section from Civilization and its Discontents, describing the destructive behaviors of humans and how these can be channeled. Diagram Freud's ideas and discuss as a class: do humans have a drive towards self-destruction? Where is destructive behavior evident today? How do individuals and society deal with their destructive impulses? Then read a novel that concentrates on the theme of the impact of society on the individual. Make a list comparing and contrasting Dr. Jekyll with the main character in one of the following novels. How does the character isolate himself from society? What is the impact on the person? How is society a positive influence? How is society detrimental to the development of the individual? Why does the character turn away from society? What is he seeking that he sees society as a barrier? The other novels are George Orwell's 1984 and Aldous Huxley's Brave New World.